From 12-5 to 5-12, the three things I see that Washington needs to do to get back to 12-5 now that 2025 is finally over.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network in the world. I'm David Harrison, your guy on the ground covering the Washington Commanders for WUSA 9. You can also find me writing on Commanders on SI, and of course, I'm here with you 5 days a week, sometimes even more. Coming up on today's episode, it is a post-game episode, and we are going to talk about some of the things that happened in the Week 18 win over the Philadelphia Eagles, but we're going to start it all off with my immediate takeaways following the conclusion of the Washington Commanders 2025 NFL season. And of course, we're going to get into a little bit of that fancy word that everybody loves to talk about, culture. All of that coming up on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today, we're doing it all thanks to Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app, use the code LOCKEDONNFL, and you'll get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. So just like the NFL season can be very, very long at times, the post-mortem, the way you digest an entire NFL season can also take some time. Certainly not going to be able to do all of it in this one episode, but what I'm going to do is try to kind of combine a little bit of forward thinking with a little bit of things that happened here in the game. We are at the Lincoln Financial Stadium, home of the Philadelphia Eagles, where the Washington Commanders win 24-17, advance to 5-12 on the season. Of course, not good enough in many different ways. But I wanted to start off this post-game live episode talking about the three things that I identify. Like, we talk about knee-jerk reactions. We talk about getting lost in the moment. I mean, this is a really long moment, right? 18 weeks, 17 games long of a moment. The three things that I just immediately off the top of my head say, this Washington Commanders team has got to figure out if they have any hopes of getting back to 12-5, and maybe not necessarily exactly 12-5, but a reasonable facsimile of what we saw in that 12-5 team last year. And the number one thing is that they've got the culture, but they haven't found the identity. That's really what I think escaped the Washington Commanders all season long. Like, going back to OTAs, going back to training camp, this team never really found their identity. I think the Washington Commanders know what their identity is supposed to be. They know what they want to be. And it's a lot like what we saw in 2024. It's explosive, it's aggressive, it's physical. It gets after the football. And certainly in some ways, we saw some of those things this season, right? We did see at least the effort to try to generate explosive plays downfield, even when they don't work. And you see that because it's the attempts, but it's also the routes being run all the way down the field. Guys aren't going out there just to do cardio, as Terry McLaurin once famously pointed out, following a historically classic Eric Bieniemy called game. You have moments of physicality. You have moments of hunting the ball and doing things. Jeremy Reeves today against Philadelphia Eagles comes up with an interception. He talked to us after the game in the locker room about it, talked about how they kind of have the dino call on, which is covering dual post routes. And Jeremy kind of drifted off to one post and then was able to come back, make Tanner McKee think, hey, that second post is going to be open because of what I'm doing. And then boom, come back, click and close on the ball and be in the right position to get the takeaway. Those types of things. You see the flashes, you see the intent, you see the moments, but you never saw the consistent identity. And I think a lot of things go into that. Certainly injuries had a part to do with it. It's hard to fully establish your total identity when your team is different every single week you come back to work. But I think really what it starts with is the senior leaders. You have executive leaders, senior leaders, junior leaders, right? And that's a very general kind of way to put organizational leadership. There are certainly more nuances to it. I don't want to just minimize what goes on in an NFL franchise, but your executive leaders are your owner, your front office, your head coach, Josh Harris, Adam Peters, Dan Quinn. If you're on thumbnail, or if you're on YouTube, or if you look on audio, the thumbnail for this episode is Dan Quinn and Josh Harris walking off the field together because they're in sync. And if I had a picture of Adam Peters walking with them, it would have been all three. So don't think I left Adam Peters off of there for any type of secret reason. The culture is set. The culture comes from your senior leaders, your organizational leaders, your executive leaders, I should say, your ownership, your general manager, your head coach. Then comes the senior leadership level that has to help set the identity based on what the culture is essentially intent. The culture is how we want to be, what we want to be, how we want to get down, as Dan Quinn likes to put it. That is your culture. The senior leaders, your coordinators, your office, even your passing game coordinators, your running game coordinators. So it's not just Kliff Kingsbury, it's not just Joe Witt Jr., it's Jason Simmons, it's Anthony Lynn, right? It's Brian Johnson. Then you have your junior leaders. The junior leaders, your quarterbacks coaches, your David Blouse, your offensive line coach, Bobby Johnson, your defensive backs coach, Tommy Donatel, defensive line coach, Daryl Tapp, all these guys, pass rush specialist, Ryan Kerrigan. Those are the people that make the identity of the organization. Those are the people that create the identity of the organization. And I've always said this about organizations. You can tell when an organization has rock solid leadership because while everything in between might look a little bit different here and there based on the unit, based on the individual, based on the need of the mission, based on whatever, the left and right limits are in place. And you can see this is a so-and-so type of unit. This is a so-and-so type of group. So if it's the O-line unit, they embody what the offensive coordinator is going to present to them. So if the organization is in chaos, typically it means you have a unit of leaders that is in chaos as well. That is where I think the problem is with the identity. That's what's got to get fixed in this offseason in order to bring this organization back to where it wants to be this season or in 2026. Number two, the injuries. We already kind of talked about it a little bit. They absolutely mattered. I want to make this abundantly clear. When players and coaches talk about we can't use injuries as an excuse, nobody feels bad about that. Nobody feels bad for us. They're talking about competitors. They're talking about the battlefield. The Philadelphia Eagles are not going to come out here and just because you're not playing with Jaden Daniels, they're not going to pass rush you easier because you don't have your starting quarterback. That's what they're talking about. They're not talking about what impacts an organization. Missing your primary weapon is detrimental to any organization. Missing your primary driver is detrimental. Your primary pass rusher, your best cover specialist. These things are absolutely detrimental. They absolutely matter. But again, go back to point number one that we just talked about. They do not excuse organizational missteps. That is the ultimate by law. And honestly, as we get through all of these things, they're all going to leak back up to number one, right? So you drop down to number two. Yes, the injuries matter. The injuries absolutely had an impact. They do. They absolutely do. On a week-to-week basis, game-to-game basis, if you're a competitor, you can't harp on them. We in the media, we in the fan base, we will talk about them. Man, if only this team had Terry McLaurin for this game, they'd have won that game. Man, if only Jaden Daniels was present for that drive, they probably would have got a touchdown. We talk about that. They don't talk about that. That's the difference in where we are in relation to this game that we all love so much, that we're sitting here at 10 o'clock at night on a Sunday talking about a 5-win team. That is absolutely significant. But again, you have to have your identity. You have to have your culture. Culture's there. Identity's got to come back. Number three, I've seen a lot of conversation about this already, so I'm just going to get this out of the way right now. I'll probably say it again more. Not that I think everybody is going to listen to this one episode throughout the entire offseason. Pick number 7, pick number 5 does not matter. It does not matter. What matters is getting the right guy for your team. That's what matters. And I'll tell you right now, and what you can throw at me if you want to. I'm already going to tell you, if you want to try to counter me, then you can go to an Adam Peters quote after a draft pick and say, but David, Adam Peters told you that this guy was at the top of their board, was the number one guy on the board. That's why they were so excited for him when they picked him. Yeah, every general manager says that. There are more than 7 people in this upcoming draft class. I promise you, more than 7 people that are fits for the Washington Commanders in 2026. There are more than 7. The key for Adam Peters at number 7 is finding the best one of the guys available at pick number 7, or trading back and getting as many more lottery tickets as you can, because that's what a draft pick is a lottery ticket. Pick number 7 versus pick number 5 does not matter. The Washington Commanders at number 29 got Josh Carnley Jr. If they were picking number 3 or number 2, whatever it was, they could have got Abdul Carter. Man, they could have got Abdul Carter. And Abdul Carter turned out to be a huge discipline issue for the New York Giants. So at number 2 or number 3, whatever it was, what the Washington Commanders could have got Abdul Carter. They could have had a huge discipline issue on their hand, a huge cohesiveness issue on their hand, and it would have caused some problems in the locker room. It would have caused some problems in the workroom. Now, I think this staff probably would have been able to handle it better than the New York Giants staff, which was very, very much in flux, right? But at number 29, they got a young tackle who not only moved from left to right, but took it head on, made no excuses, didn't pout, didn't whine, didn't cry, nothing. I mean, this is a rookie who actually, I can tell you, at times approached me to talk to me about what was going on with his career and with his season. Then I approached him. That's not normal. That shows you a guy who's confident, who's wanting to talk, who's willing to put it out there and say, this is the process. This is what we're going through. That's who they got. A guy who's very much on a bigger uptick than the other guy is. I'm not saying that Bill Carter's career is dead in the water by any means, but just telling you, if you can have that difference 29-2, you can have that difference of 7-5. The key is not where you pick them. The key is, are they the right guy for your organization when you get the opportunity to get them? So those are my 3 takeaways: knee-jerk reactions, in the moment reactions. We will dive further deeper into this postmortem of this season, obviously, as we continue moving forward into this week and onward into the offseason. Coming up next, we are going to talk about 2 players on the oldest team in the National Football League that proved why they're still kicking around and why they're still starters in this National Football League. Coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode of Locked On Commanders is brought to you by Drip Drop. Kicking off the year feeling good is the goal, right? It should always be the goal. Honestly, hydration is the easiest win. And when I say on top of it, my energy, my focus, my mood, all level up. But let's be real, plain water doesn't always cut it, especially when you're grinding through long days, hitting the gym, or you're just trying to stay consistent with your health goals. Got me some plain water right here in the car. I've got some Drip Drop because that's where that comes in. Doctor developed, proven fast hydration that helps your body and mind work better. Think clearer focus, better energy, elevated mood, even that fresh skin glow, which I know you're all enjoying on me right now if you're watching YouTube. Drip Drop was kind enough to send us some samples so we can talk to you about this intelligently. I've been using Drip Drop ever since I got that, and honestly, it's been awesome. It's not just for your heavy workout days either. It's for every single day, man, because your body is constantly using resources, constantly needing to be replenished. They've got flexible subscription options if you want to go with that. All kinds of ways for you to get into it. So right now, Drip Drop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Just go to dripdrop.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONNFL for 20% off. Stock up now at dripdrop.com and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Today's episode is also brought to you by a familiar friend, Prize Picks. Whether you're starting a new routine this season or jumping into player projections for the first time, whether it's football, whether it's basketball or anything else, try something new. Trying something new can feel like a challenge, but with Prize Picks, it always feels good to be right. With high-pressure football matchups coming up, especially with the playoffs coming, elite hoops action almost every single night. The action never slows down, and Prize Picks lets you stay in control of your action. Prize Picks is the daily fantasy app that makes watching sports even more exciting by letting you build lineups based on player projections. No drafting, no waiting. You just pick more or less on player projections, and then you get to play your way. Getting started with Prize Picks is quick and it's simple, and the app is super easy to navigate. And the flex play option is great. You can even lose one of your picks, but still win with the flex play. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL. You'll get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in the world. To the everydayers, those of you who come through for every single episode, special thank you to you for coming through for yet another one today. And if you do come through for every episode, the Everydayer All Access tier is built especially for you. You get one-on-one text access with me. You get all access episodes. You get exclusive newsletter, 15% discount to Locked On merch store. Some of those all access episodes are things like locker room audio. I got Jeremy Reeves and Von Miller locker room audio here from Philadelphia uploaded before we went live on this episode. So if you're an all access member, you already have that accessible to you. Head to lockedoncommanders.supercast.com to join the Everydayer Club. Unlock that all access tier. You can also find a link for that in the show notes of today's episode. All season long, we have been talking to legends here with the Washington Commanders, 2 of them specifically, linebacker Bobby Wagner, outside linebacker Von Miller. One of them not as widely embraced by the general Washington Commanders fan base, certainly not everybody, but just generally speaking. one of the more embraced or at least accepted in his role, though he's not an every down player, in Von Miller. Bobby Wagner today with 5 tackles hit the 2,000 career tackles mark. He joins Ray Lewis, London Fletcher as the only other players in NFL history to hit that mark. Only 3 dudes in the entire history of the National Football League, with all the players that have been out there, the Derek Brookses of the world, the Mike Singletaries, the Lawrence Taylors, all these guys. Ray Lewis, London Fletcher, Bobby Wagner. Even in a 4-win season, even with knee injuries creeping up on him, even with age hitting him a little bit, even with the public, honestly, especially the louder portion of the public, just publicly stating that he is out of his depth, washed up, shouldn't be on the field as much as he is, all those things. Bobby Wagner continues to come through and produce for this team. Damn near sacked 2 players at one time, running back and a quarterback. And yeah, he ended up getting under the helmet and getting flagged for a face mask, unfortunately. But the brute force of the play alone to not just drive the running back into his quarterback's lap, but to, like I said, damn near sack both of them at the same time. Just incredibly impressive feat of strength by Bobby Wagner. And, I've seen some comments in the past that I've kind of let just kind of go by the wayside, to be honest with you, about, well, when your defense is on the field constantly, it's easy to rack up tackles. Let me tell you something. 2,000 tackles is not something that just happens. It's not something that is just shoved away. 2,000 tackles is great. And I know that even the people who want him benched here this year don't deny Bobby's legendary status. But Bobby Wagner continuing to prove why he is one of the best linebackers in the National Football League, even to this day, full package. Now, I'm not sitting here telling you he's more athletic and all those things. And certainly, by the way, if you saw Jordan McGee, yes, there was the play where he got juked. Not really juked out of his cleats, actually juked like into his cleats, like just stuck in the mud by Tank Bigsby. But also made some really good plays, some really athletic plays to help close out his season. I think Jordan McGee is definitely on an upward swing entering this offseason. Number 2, talk about Von Miller. Von Miller, game-sealing sack on Tanner McKee, Philadelphia Eagles backup quarterback, late in the 4th quarter, gives him 138.5 career sacks. The significance of that is, 1, it hit an incentive for him, which earned him $500,000 in that play. But also, more importantly to him, as he told us in the locker room after the game, he tied with DeMarcus Ware, good buddy of his, former teammate of his, for 13th all-time on the NFL sack list. He's about 10 sacks away from entering the top 10. He does say that he plans on coming back for another season. He would love to come back to the Washington Commanders. And I think that, it's again, kind of going back to the first segment, the 3 things the Washington Commanders need to do. It really highlights and emphasizes the culture and how good the culture of this organization is. And I know some people hate hearing the word culture. It's an overused word. It doesn't matter as much as you think it does. Let me tell you something. Von Miller is a guy, like, let's all be honest here. Let's not be revisionist history people. Let's go back to training camp. Let's go back to Von Miller's arrival. What did we all say about Von Miller coming to this team? He's a mercenary in search of a ring. That's what we all said. Be honest. That's what we all said. That's what we expected Von Miller to be. And in some ways, that might be what Von Miller expected himself to be. I will tell you right now, I know there are other guys on this team this year who could have, through whatever means, been on a different team this year, who came back to this team specifically because they saw a Super Bowl ring within their grasp. Von Miller, I believe, was one of them, at least at the beginning. But in his time with this team, even in 5 wins, even with 12 losses, he's fallen in love so much with this process, with this front office, with this coaching staff. He says the coaching staff, not even Dan Quinn. He does mention Dan Quinn specifically, but talk about the coaching staff. All access guys, you have this audio. You can go listen to what I'm talking about yourself. He wants to come back to this team, and he believes that in 2026, this team is going to be incredibly dangerous. He also mentions the injuries. Why? Because we're outside the season now. Now players can sit there and acknowledge, yeah, dude, we got beat up with injuries. So now they can do that. Now they can acknowledge that. DeMarcus Ware, Von Miller, a guy who should be ring hunting, possibly still is ring hunting, still believes in what's going on in Washington, still wants to be a part of it. And I think that is fantastic. And it's a great way to remind us of what this team has, because even if the wins and losses look similar to days of before, this organization could not be further from those days of before. So if you're still out there, if you know somebody still out there saying, this is just like it was under that guy's ownership, or under that guy's head coach, or under that guy's coordinating and play calling. No, it's not. No, it's not. I know that the numbers look the same. The numbers in the win-loss column look the same. That alone does not make it the same thing. All right? And if you don't believe me, go listen to Von Miller's audio if you have all access ability to do so. And if you don't, get all access ability to do so, and you'll be able to hear Von Miller's tell you that for himself. Again, future Hall of Fame linebacker. So if you don't want to trust me, your humble reporter out here covering this team for you, maybe listen to the Hall of Fame outside linebacker, one of the best to ever play this game that we all love so much. Coming up next, we've got Dan Quinn and Adam Peters' end of season press conference coming up Monday. Literally in about 18 hours, as I stand here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, still miles and miles away from Virginia, a little bit of sleep, and being back in Ashburn for you tomorrow. And there are a couple of things that we need to answer from these two, from Dan Quinn. We need answers about from Dan Quinn and Adam Peters this offseason to know whether or not we can actually get excited again in 2026. That coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. The new year doesn't require a new you, maybe a little bit just a less burdened you. We all carry things that weigh us down or hold us back, and therapy can help you identify what those things are by offering an unbiased perspective to better understand your relationships, motivations, and emotion. And that's where BetterHelp comes in. It makes it easier to get matched online with a qualified therapist who can help you work through what's holding you back. Maybe you've got obstacles that you need to learn to let go of, or that you're working to let go of. Maybe you've got fear, pressure to be perfect, or doubt that's weighing you down. You can share your authentic thoughts with these therapists, and they can let you know whether or not, they can let you know how to not only persevere through them, but get better through all of it. BetterHelp makes it easy for you to get matched online with a qualified therapist. So sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's betterhelp.com/lockedon. Today's episode is also brought to you in part by Game Time. The NFL season is about to hit the postseason in full swing, and there's nothing like being at those games. Honestly, even if you're not a fan of any of the teams playing, just seeing that playoff atmosphere, being part of the crowd noise, the energy, and the cheering can be electric. Watching at home is great, but the stadium just hits different. If you don't want to see other teams playing the playoffs, go see your favorite shows, comedies, other sports in your area, and do it with Game Time, because Game Time gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing tickets and experiences in just a few taps. You pull up the Game Time app, check out the upcoming events in your area or an area you're going to be, find great ticket options almost instantly. It's incredibly intuitive, browsing, comparing, and buying tickets in just minutes. And one of my favorite features lets you see your seats before you buy the tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create your account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create your account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL at $20 off. Download the Game Time app today and get back to being there live. All right, we are about 30 minutes for me walking out the doors of Lincoln Financial Field or Stadium, heading back to Virginia, getting a few hours of sleep, getting cleaned up a little bit, and then heading right back to Ashburn to meet up with your Washington Commanders players. And then about 5 p.m. Eastern time-ish, we will sit down with Dan Quinn and Adam Peters and ask them all kinds of fun questions that they don't want to answer because they'd much rather be planning for a playoff game. But that's the whole point of these questions, is to figure out how is this organization going to get back there. So for the coaching staff, I think the question really, we got an answer first before anything, is what is the coaching staff? What is this coaching staff going to look like? What is going to happen with the defensive coordinator position? Dan Quinn said that he is not totally averse to keeping play calling, though I don't get the vibe that he wants to continue play calling. I think that he would much rather be the executive head coach he set out to be when he got here to Washington. And selfishly, fully, transparent, I would prefer that. I've always preferred an executive head coach that has oversight of everything, and then your coordinators, let them do their thing. Let them lead their platoons, as it were. So that's what I would love to see Dan Quinn go back and do. Who are the candidates? I can't narrow them down all for you fully. I'll tell you right now, Raheem Morris reportedly fired by the Atlanta Falcons. I've already gotten so many texts about whether or not I think Raheem Morris should be the next defensive coordinator of the Washington Commanders. And my response to all of them has been, sign me all the way up. I've got experience with Raheem from his days in Tampa, followed him to Los Angeles, Atlanta, back to Atlanta, all those things. Like Washington, sign me all the way up for Raheem Morris. If Adam Peters and Dan Quinn thinks that his system can work with what they're trying to build, I know his personality, I know his drive is going to fit. Sign me all the way up for that experience. But doesn't mean he's the only one. Al Harris is another guy. There's plenty of other options out there as well that we will continue to dig through while we have the opportunity to do so. Never know when that hire might come. I do think that the team is going to move on from Joe Witt Jr. I don't believe that Joe Witt Jr. will be the defensive coordinator again. Could he be on the staff? Listen, in a perfect world, I would actually love to see Joe Witt stay on the staff because I think he's a great person. One, I think he really fits the Commanders mold. Two, very smart about football. I know the play calling didn't go great. I know the scheming didn't go great. Very smart about football. Trust me on that. But I just wonder about the chemistry and the toxicity possibility of the situation. So I don't think so. But Raheem Morris, absolutely a name on that list to watch for defense. Offensively, obviously we talked about the Diana Rossini report that potentially some disconnect between Kliff Kingsbury and the front office could lead to him leaving. If you've been paying attention to this show for about the last month, you kind of picked up on my vibe. And I'm not really happy with what Kliff Kingsbury has done. I do give some credit and leeway to the injuries. Of course, I don't necessarily sit here and say, dude, you should have been able to make this a top 5 scoring offense even without Terry, even without Jaden, even without. That's ridiculous. But it's not the result that has me feeling the way I feel. It's the way we got to the result, the lack of ingenuity, the lack of attempt to get creative until the end of the season, which honestly, I asked Dan Quinn about the changes we've seen in the recent weeks in the offense, and to give him the opportunity to credit his offensive coordinator for ushering in some changes even late in the season, and he did not credit his offensive coordinator. So take that with a grain of salt. Doesn't mean it's not, just doesn't mean that it is, and there's certainly an opportunity for him to say that it was. Some options there. Obviously, I think for most of us, Mike McDaniel, head coach of the Miami Dolphins, if he gets fired, would be a great option to consider if he's not burnt out, if he doesn't need a year off, because being a head coach is incredibly stressful. But we'll dive deeper into these coaching staff situations. The coaching staff is going to make a big difference in what this roster needs to look like moving forward. So doing that is going to be a little bit hard to necessarily say who are the draft fits, who are these guys that you want to see. So for Adam Peters, what is important? Fit to your coordinators or fit to your vision? Because right now the two things don't seem to match up. And I go back to Ben Sinnott. I'm not going to beat a dead horse. We talked about it in length. If you want to hear that full conversation, go back to some recent episodes. We've talked about the Ben Sinnott situation. Most oftentimes you'll hear me reference Adam Peters talking about Ben Sinnott being a Kyle Juszczyk type player. Yet until basically the last 2 or 3 weeks, like we just talked about, Ben Sinnott not being used largely in that Kyle Juszczyk type of mold, still not being used in that mold as much as I would like him to be. Not that I'm the end-all, be-all, or genius of football, but I look at these goal line runs with Corey Krosky-Merritt. A guy like Ben Sinnott pulling in front of him, running off that left tackle with Ben Sinnott running through the C gap to lead the way, probably be a little bit helpful. Trying to run Chris Rodriguez through the A gap, Ben Sinnott as a little bit of a primer there, jumping through the A gap to meet the linebacker or push that D tackle back in a combo block with a lineman, might be a little bit helpful. Not really something that we're seeing a lot of, though, these days. And I can tell you right now that it's not just a media take. It is something that I know for a fact other people wish they would have more of. So once we get those coordinators in place, we'll know a little bit more about what the Washington Commanders want to be, who they want to be, how they want to be, and we'll look a little bit more about how Adam Peters' approach can impact the talents or the maximization of that talent, I should say, moving into 2026. So that's our little bit of our post-mortem. Again, look, we're not going anywhere, guys. 5 days a week, if not more, on Locked On Commanders all season long. So we will be back tomorrow. We got players in the locker room. We got a press conference. I think I'm going to try to do another episode between the players and the press conference. So you'll have an episode about what the players are talking about in the locker room. Then we'll do another episode after that, probably next Tuesday after I sleep, on what Adam Peters and Dan Quinn had to say. And we're just going to dive further into our postseason, not playoffs, but postseason, as in season's over, evaluation of the Washington Commanders. And I'm just going to do my best to tell you the truth, give you the best to give you quantifiable reasons why I see things the way that I see them. As always, agreeing is not a requirement to listen to Locked On Commanders or to comment to Locked On Commanders. However, respect is. I respect you. All I ask is that you respect me. If I tell you that I want to draft this guy for this reason and you think that's dumb, fantastic. Tell me why it's dumb. Don't just tell me I'm dumb, because contrary to popular belief, I'm actually not very dumb. That's going to do it for today's episode. Next time on Locked On Commanders, we are going to break down even more of what's going on around this team so we can try to put our finger on the pulse of a successful 2026. I do appreciate all of you for sticking through. 2025 is over. Now it's about putting it to bed, dissecting it as much as we can, doing the autopsy, figuring out what killed it so we can move forward with a healthier Washington Commanders team. Make sure you are subscribed. Follow along Locked On Commanders so you get all the latest episodes. You can also follow me on X at DHarrison82, on Instagram at DHarrison_82. And if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is for you. Join Locked On, or go to lockedoncommanders.supercast.com to join that today. Check out the Locked On NFL podcast for your next listen twice per day, once in the morning, once at night. Locked On NFL on YouTube, wherever you're listening to today's episode. To the Everydayers, I see you. I appreciate you every single day, all season long and into the offseason. Until next time, stay safe, be kind to one another. We'll talk again real soon right here on Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.